with the droughts. And the only reason they didn't is because the Kansas Aquifer Authority and the Kansas government was actively engaging in weather mitigation to stop it from raining in Kansas throughout the entire summer.
And why were they doing that, Dutch?
Well, that's the question of the century that I'm trying to get down to. I'm working with a guy named Julio Rousseau, who's a radio talk show host from Rents Radio. He's up in Chicago, and he's well known. He's been, on InfoWars and a couple others. And him and I are working together on a project. He discovered a series of documents that are smoking gun, and they basically implicate the Kansas Water Authority and Nebraska Water Authority with deliberately making it not rain, and they know it. And in their own writings, they say it. This is this past July where I'm talking about. And so we're working on that. We're going to get that out, and I think people will be shocked to find out that they actually did manipulate the weather to not rain out west this year. And just to make it not rain out west in Kansas, guess where you have to start? Colorado.
Well, that's like a huge thing that they count on is rain. And let's just not say, hey, they didn't make it not rain, but what about the fact that they heated it up in the hundreds for such a long period of time on top of it and not have the rain? I mean, obviously, if that was man-made, there's a serious reason for that, and it's very destructive reason.
It definitely affected food supply.
Yeah, and is that what they want? It's still, how do you control the people? Through water and through food. Was that a test? Was that a test to, hey, let's pick this one little area here in Kansas to see if this works. So if we want to do it on the bigger scale, we can.
Yes, and they did, and it did make the cost of food. We haven't even felt what it is because this year's harvest is coming to fruit now, over the past month or two, and we will see it in the translated cost in food over the winter going into next year is where we will start to see a real huge price increase once they start to tap. They don't keep a 7-year supply like the Bible tells them. The Bible says keep a 7-year supply for a case of famine, but they only keep a few months' supply. And so if they're, when we see this translate over, it's going to be a huge increase in cost. And imagine if you knew about that. Okay, let's say you work for the Kansas Water Authority, and you know they're getting ready to engage in weather mitigation, and they're going to kill all the corn, okay? Well, let's say you own corn shares, right? I mean, it would give you an insider trading opportunity to make a lot of money and maximize on a drought situation that nobody knows is going to occur yet, but you're going to cause. And I think that might play into why they did it. Why would Kansas block all the rain from coming to it? It doesn't make sense. The only reason they would do that is to drive up the cost of goods from their state.
Well, was any of that Monsanto's corn by chance?
A lot of it was GMO corn. This goes into a whole other conspiracy realm, guys. I mean, this is what we talk about off the air, which is, oh man, do you really think, I wonder if maybe somebody wants to kill all the GMO corn and they're trying to help us, or maybe they know GMO is bad and they're trying to end Monsanto, or maybe Monsanto is just trying to get more seeds sold, or maybe they're trying to push their drought-resistant corn this time, and so, these are the theories, conspiracy theories, that we have to look into and kind of find out. And so that's part of what I'm doing with Julio, I think, here in the next couple of weeks is going to be maybe going out there and talking to some people that might be on the menu and interviewing the Aquifer Authority, or at least trying to find out what their motivations were.
Yeah, well, Dutch, keep us posted on that.
I will.
That's some really serious stuff there. I mean, to me, what I feel, and my gut knee-jerk reaction, which is scary, is that was just a sample test. That was just, a little area of an experiment that happened in Kansas. And, again, who's behind it and why is the key question. But that's what it feels like. If the drought was created and the heat wave was created in a small area, and, again, the poor people in Kansas were just subjects of just disposable, basically, is what it is. That's really sad. But really, what guys like you and I need to look at is what was the purpose and what could possibly happen to us in the future that people are looking at to use us.
And touching on what we've talked about earlier in the show with these weapons like HARP and some of the other similar weapons that different countries have, how does that affect, I mean, can Russia control our weather? I think so, correct?
Oh, yes, they can. And if you guys ever want to have a great little video watch, there's a video from 1985. It's on YouTube. It's called Soviet Weather Engineering over the United States, and it's by Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden. And he gives a full presentation, mid-'80s, VHS style, in front of a hotel conference room of people, explaining fully how frequency is started by the Russians, is being used and has been used to cause freak events in the United States. And so that is something that played into my original discovery on the radar here. Was one of the things is, how do we know somebody from the outside isn't pulsing our radar, like tapping our radar from above and causing a resonance? And, that is something we do have to look into, that Russia could target, just like we use our HARP to target a small point in the sky anywhere around the planet. They could use their HARP to do the same thing over us and cause weather problems. I don't think they would do anything to try and help us, to be quite honest. So, the only thing they could do over us is cause a problem. But luckily, and this is luckily, we have at least 2 NEXRADs that cover every state around the entire 50. What are the chances, right? Each one, it's our shield. It's our force field. And so we have a force field, and it literally can be pulsed to control our own weather and hopefully to reflect or deflect a signal from them. However, scalar, and this is so, we could go down a science rabbit hole on this, scalar will go through all of that. And so if they have figured out scalar, then they can literally penetrate the Earth all the way through and come through from underneath, or they could go right through our electromagnetic spectrum and have a resonance effect that could be dire for the whole planet. We're talking about forces that according to Tesla, could split the planet in half, positive and negative. From a small device.
Yeah, I was under the impression that Russia had the scalar technology.
Yes, they do. But then again, we do too. And so this is a whole section of science that I don't even know about and would become science fiction to me, but I'm sure exists, which is the understanding behind base scalar zero-point magnetism. It's so out there, but it's real physics. We're talking about waves that can penetrate anything. We're talking about a Faraday cage that won't protect you from an electromagnetic pulse on a zero vector. It's so out there. It's so abstract. We're talking about the thing that makes up energy itself. Like, what makes up energy itself? What makes up the actual background construct of the universe? And then we start getting into scalar waves, and we start getting into things that happen on a 0 point that occupy no space. And so it's very, very strange. But, yes, they do have – I would say the Russians are ahead of us. They were ahead of us in space. They're ahead of us in defense. They're ahead of us in electromagnetics. I dare say they were even ahead of us on nuclear and that we ripped them off. But, I can't prove that 100%.
Yeah, and all this can be just a nasty war, a nasty pissing match of, like you said, controlling people's weather. Let's cause an earthquake over here. Let's cause a drought over here. Let's cause flooding over here. And it's not like you're on the ground fighting each other. You don't really know where it's all coming from. So it's kind of a nasty little war. Well, hey Dutch, I'm gonna move out of this and I'm gonna move on to the topic. We only got like about 20 minutes left on the show. And the topic I'm going to talk to is the controversy YouTube video that we all know is a bunch of BS and crap that caused all the uprisings over in the Muslim world in the Middle East and in northern Africa. So I know you got a few things to say about it. Why don't you go ahead and start off with it?
Okay, and you guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, you probably were gone for the month of August. Literally a month ago, on September 11th, 2012, a video made an international outrage, and it was called The Innocence of Muhammad. And it actually was multiple titles before that, and the video had been out since July. But for some reason, it broke out on YouTube on the 11th. Even though it was on YouTube before, it didn't make a sensation or a freak out until September 11th. Now, the movie itself, I'm a YouTube video maker, guys, and I speak for all YouTube video makers when we say that movie is complete crap and that it has no place in our community on YouTube. It violates like all kinds of YouTube rules. We have rules we sign up to on YouTube that kind of violate our Second Amendment rights, you know. I mean, YouTube is not the place for this video. But it turns out the discovery is, the scandal of all scandals is that the movie itself was broke on September 11th and going back into July on U.S. Department of Defense Contractor Associated YouTube pages. News links now, news source now. You can go look this up by searching the name of the company that staged the whole thing. And you search it like this: Stanley Incorporated Staged Muslim Video. And you'll find all the evidence that you need to show you that these channels that broke the Muhammad video were directly associated with a company called Stanley Incorporated. And Stanley Incorporated is a primary provider of cyber data, data handling, all types of things having to do with data for the U.S. government. Department of Homeland Security, for the U.S. Army, for a laundry list of U.S. government agencies this company handles. Now, what are the chances? What are the chances that that movie would break across their channels only? I'd say it's an impossibility. Multiple channels, I mean, if it was just one, it could be maybe a lone employee or something that did it, but, you know, it went across maybe like multiple, like 3 or 4 of them. And then within that amount of time, we have an uprising happening because of the video. It's an international outrage. Remember, a month ago, we were going to war. It was a freak out. There was an embassy that got attacked at the same time, supposedly. Only problem was it was reported as an embassy. Mainstream news talked of it as an embassy, but it turns out there's no embassy there. Not even a consulate. Turns out they had to come back and correct the entire story about the ambassador who was shot and tell us that he was in a little safe house with no guards. That's the actual truth of the story. Ambassador, safe house, no guards, shot up, staged Muslim video to inflict outrage and pain. And that didn't take. It lasted for a day. People freaked out for a day or two. They beat the mainstream media drum that we were going to go to war over a YouTube video. And then, once we outed it, the whole thing. What happened? What happened, man? It's been a month. It all went away. It's almost like it never existed.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, let's go back to this family Incorporated. They released the video. Were they responsible for making it, or was it just a fluke that they found this and just stirred people up? Because I bet you there's other things out there like this, too. I mean, we make fun of Christ. We make fun of God. I mean, George Burns played God. Monty Python, you know, has just totally ridiculed and was blasphemous to the Bible. And, you know, guys like you and I, we don't care. Was it just something that they found and that they just kind of just whispered in a couple people's ears to cause an uproar? Because it's very easy to do. Do you think they made the movie, or did they just luckily find it and just poured gasoline on it?
Well, the movie itself, the producer of the movie was the fall guy for the whole thing. So I think his name was Nusef, and he is supposedly the guy that made it. But you got to ask yourself the question is, how did the Defense Department contracting company get its hands on the video in the first place? Right?
Well,
like,
exactly.
You know, and they had to have downloaded it from somewhere. They had to have gotten it from somewhere. And now here's the other thing is one of the channels broke the trailer for it. The other channel broke the full 15-minute long thing. And so, and apparently there's a longer version, too, that hasn't been released or whatever. But
it really is, because, see, that's my thought, that there really isn't one. It's just this 15-minute thing that they call a movie, which, you know, we all have a different name for it. But it'll be interesting if there's a full movie out of it.
Oh, yeah, and to see who breaks it. Again, it's just so weird. You wouldn't find a Defense Department contractor doing anything else. I mean, it's just so strange that they did it, and then the uprising came at the same time, and that the ambassador assassination came at the same time, and that it was all turns out to be kind of